Hello fellow woodworkers and welcome to this week's edition of the Garage Workshop, and in this video we're going to be finishing my worktop extension. Roll the intro. So I left the glue overnight and the next day I removed the clamps, and due to the intergalactically large amount of wood glue that I used, it had stuck really well. It was quite cold that night as well. I don't know what the temperature is for this glue. If you do know, just drop it in the comments, but it dried okay. And I then got the second part of the doors cut, which I'll explain a little bit more about in a minute on the actual video. But this piece of plywood that I had left over is actually turned out to be really good. Not only did it do everything I needed for this, but you're also going to see it in an upcoming project as well, where the rest of it was used. And I literally just found this in a skip and recycled it. I then passed it through my table saw, and I think I've mentioned this before, this is my brand new table saw, the replacement one, and the blade is really sharp, which makes me realise perhaps I've been using too dull a blade for too long, and it's giving me a really nice quality of cut. So I ran it through and I was ready to go. Okay, so I've got a little bit of a change in plan going on, and I think I'm going to go back to my original concertina idea, but I'm going to use sort of double doors because I was a bit worried about how strong the top underneath was going to be if it was just resting on one little bit. I think it's going to bow in the middle, so if I use two doors on the side, it's a bit hard to sort of explain. If I get to finish this, I'll put a little picture of what I mean, but essentially I'm going to concertina these two doors on the side, and if I do that, it's going to enable me to use them in lots of sort of different ways, and then they will still fold flat into the workbench. So I'm going to cut this in half. This is now exactly the same width, hopefully you can see, as the worktop, and it's the same depth as the other one. So what I'm going to do now is cut this exactly in half, and then the bit that you saw me make earlier with the edging strip, I'm also going to run that through the table saw as well, so that I've got sort of two sets of doors. So eventually it will sort of fold out on both sides, which I think will make more sense when you see it effectively. So I'm going to run these both through the table saw now and get them to the right size. Okay, so now I've cut it, it might be a little bit easier to explain. So essentially what I'm going to do is have this and this together like so. So this one is going to be, this side is going to be hinged to the side of the workbench, and this is also going to have a hinge in between it. So normally it will sit like that, and then when I want to use the workbench, it will pivot out like that. So again, I've got to have super strong hinges, but that way at least I think we're going to have the right amount of length for wood, because this is nearly a metre when it's all out. Now, a couple of things that I am a bit nervous about, I'm not going to lie. Obviously the hinges now we're back to the sort of flat piece of wood for fixing the hinges in, but if I do the same thing to this that I've done to the other one, it's gonna actually push a gap out between them. So I could do it this way round and still hinge this one in the way that I was going to before. So this is at the back, and then this panel is on the front, but that would mean putting the hinges in that side. So I would still need here to put another batten in. So whichever way round it goes, it's going to need another batten of wood in it. Now I think I'm close to where I need to be, I think I just need to take a couple of minutes to actually think this through, because the other thing is this is quite, these two pieces of wood now together are quite heavy, so I've also got to be aware of that. I mean, when it's folded flat like that and it's against the workbench, it won't matter, but when it's out and it's expanded, it will matter. So I do need to consider that, and the fact that it's then going to have the top on it, and the fact that it's then going to have the project or whatever it is on the top of it. So I've just got to think, I know I'm close, I just need to think of the best way to work this out, so I'm going to do that now. Now that I had a plan, the next thing to do was to notch out the hinges for connecting the door, and there's quite a little bit of footage about this because, number one, it's only the sort of second time I've properly used my chisel for the correct intention, and I wanted to make sure that I got these as good as I could. Now, I have to say it was a bit of a mixed picture. One side was slightly lower than the other side, so what I actually did do is put a little plastic filler in behind it just to raise it up. I think I was just a bit too gung-ho with the chisel, to be honest. The second one, the bottom one, and the other two were much better, much more in line and where they should be. I'm trying to increase my skill range, and certainly the projects that I'm doing at the moment, I think, are only limited by my confidence in what I can do. So little things like this, like notching out, are really important. So as you can see there, I'm just leveling the hinges up. The lines that I marked were completely straight, so I knew that the hinges were straight, sort of in relation to the workbench, and I already knew that the workbench was straight. Fixing the door, I won't bore you with all of this footage. This took quite a long time to get right, and it's one of those things where it's quite difficult to do this when you're on your own because essentially you could really do with somebody there with you to help you out. But I did manage to do it, thanks in part to a finely balanced selection of different pieces of wood, which you can't really see. You might get to see them later, but basically I propped the door up on these pieces of wood. There you can see them there, look, and it kept it straight enough that I could fix it. I also did have a couple of goes at this. I don't think I've included the other one on here because he wants to see it twice, but the first time I did it, the door was a bit too low, so I just had to pop it up. And also I'm using quite deep self-tapping screws there. They're pretty much going through the entire sort of band of that edging strip. When I was happy with that, I moved on to the second door. Actually, I had to go out and buy another piano or continuous hinge, which you can see here, and I do explain later that actually this was incorrect. I'd done it upside down and I just hadn't clocked it, but this was me fixing it. I also, with everything on this project, pretty much you'll have seen in both videos, I pre-drilled everything because with plywood it's so easy to get it to split. I just didn't want to have that and have to start again from scratch. So I did take my time and I did pre-drill. Also, I drilled all those holes in that. I never actually ended up using all of those holes that I'd previously drilled, but they're there if I need them. So the next thing to do was to attack the other side, and I have to say this was much better than the first side. I'd really got the sort of depth of the hinge much closer. When I laid these two hinges in, it's not easy to see from this angle, I apologise for that, but when I laid the hinge in this time, it just fit perfectly. So again, just fixed it in, screwed it in exactly the same way as I did the other time, again with those self-tapping screws, which I think are going to make it very sturdy, and certainly the hinges weren't going anywhere when I'd fixed them in. And again, these hinges are ones that I've just recycled from another project. When I'd got them fixed in and drilled all the way out, here you can see I'm just reattaching the hinge because when I did it the first time, I just wanted to make the hole a little bit deeper. So when they were all fixed in and ready to go, then I was ready to move on to the second part of the project, which was putting the little bolt in. I'm not going to lie, this is not a great system, and I am going to look at potentially doing something else. I mean, this will work for now. but these little slide bolts really haven't got the sort of guts of what they need to have, really. But I'm going to have a little bit of a think about this, because it might be that I just put sort of 2 brackets and slide a piece of wood in. But for now, I've gone with this option because, as I said, it only had a very limited job to do, and it was certainly good enough for that. And again, just pre-drilling everything. I did this on both sides, and as you can see, I should have said, I've got that piece of wood clamped at the top to try as much as possible and keep the door level. When I did it, first of all, the bolt was a little bit stiff, and I think that was mainly because the door was sort of slightly moving back and forward, but it still worked. And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. And I also got these hinges from Wilko, which sadly I won't be able to do anymore due to Wilko going under. When that was done, it was just time for a little test drive. And as you can see, they work really, really well, exactly as I planned them. You can see they just took a bit of a twist out to get it in. And there is a little bit of flexibility in there, which I'm not happy about. But at the end of the day, it's going to be locked in, as you'll see in a minute. So I don't have to worry too much. With that done, it was time to have a little bit of a dry run of putting the board in. Now, how I was planning on doing this was getting the legs at the angle that I was happy with. And when that was done, I was just going to lay the top on and then just sort of mark either side, measure a length in from the top, the panel sort of nearest me. So I used my square for that, my carpenter square for that. And I just measured a distance which I felt was about right, and that's why you can see me just having a fiddle here and trying to get it in. I think in the end it was something like 16 centimetres. I think the gap at the top, you'll see me in a minute when I actually measured it, and I literally just put 2 diagonal lines which gave me the sort of tracks. There you can see the square I measured there. Maybe it was 20 centimetres actually. Yeah, I think it was 20. So I just literally marked 2 tracks, and then that gave me the opportunity then, when I flipped it over, to just make like a couple of guides essentially that will sit on there and keep it hooked in. Now at this point, those guides they're attached to the board, but the board is not attached to the main workbench, and I've done that deliberately. So I was just getting a good measurement here of what it was, so that I can make some accurate cuts on the table saw. And this is just an offcut of that same edging strip that I used on the outside of the door. Set up a really rudimentary stop block. I mean, it doesn't get any easier than that, just a clamp. And then I pre-drilled all of them. And actually the camera moved. I noticed when I was doing this, I think the camera moved during this, so obviously that was the vibration. But I pre-drilled them all just to make sure. Again, I didn't want to risk anything splitting or cracking, and it was really important that these holes were sort of roughly in the right places, because these 2 sort of tracks essentially are what's going to keep the top in place. So I used a bit of a marker of a piece of the same size MDF to make sure they're in the right place, and I also left a tiny little bit of room there. It's not like rigid solid. With that done, it was time for the very exciting first go to see if it would all work. So undone the bolt, opened it out, both bolts absolutely fine. Then I grabbed the top of the table and offered it up. As you can see, that swinging, that is a bit annoying, but not an issue. And I was so pleased, I cannot tell you how pleased and relieved I was to see that it fitted exactly as I imagined it being. I was very, very happy. So fellow woodworkers, as you can see, the project is finished. The extension is there. It's exactly as I imagined it being. I've really enjoyed this project because hopefully, if you've seen the first part, and there'll be a link in the description, my idea has evolved completely from what I originally thought I was going to do to where I've actually got to now. I'm really pleased. It's made my workbench really big and you know, huge, and I probably won't use this that often, but if I'm going to make a bigger project, for example a piece of furniture or a gate or something like that, I've now got a proper space that I can use it for. The strength in the hinges I'm really, really pleased with. It's really sturdy. There's a little bit of sagging in the middle, and I'm going to see how that goes, because I could obviously put a little modification in to change that. A couple of little things. I didn't anticipate the doors moving quite so much, so I'm going to get some of those sort of loop gate fixings for the side, and I've just put a bolt in the middle for where the two bolt holes are. I've just put that bolt in to stop it sort of splaying out, but again, that's a very small thing and it's not going to get used all the time, so it could even be that I put a little like tie twist in there or something like that. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, on this side, this part of the main workbench is actually raised up. I thought it was this, but I've had the level on everything and it's absolutely perfectly in line. But this side is down only by about 3 or 4 mil maybe. And at the moment I've just got this old piece of wedge of wood in there, which I will use for now to sort of keep it level, but I might have a think about that. It might be that I just add a little piece of wood onto this permanently, or it might be that, you know, I just leave it. Doesn't matter if it's a little bit down, but it's very rigid, it's very sturdy, it's going to give me the extension that I need, and obviously it's not going to be used for very long, and I will be very careful when I use it. But I'm particularly pleased with how the concertina supports worked, and when it's closed I think it looks really good. In terms of putting something on the end, I'm gonna think about that, because if I do, it'll only be something very sort of light, because what I don't want to do is have those things sort of flying around, and I am conscious of putting extra weight on the doors. But having said that, the continuous or the piano hinges have really done their job. Just one thing I will point out, I did film it, but for some reason my GoPro cut out halfway through and I didn't spot it. When I put the piano hinge on the second set of doors, I didn't realise that I'd got them clamped upside down, so I put the piano hinge on the wrong side. So I had to take the piano hinge out, flip it over and put it on the other side. Otherwise it wouldn't have left me that piece of trim to connect the hinges to on the inside. So I did film that, and you know what my videos are like, I always leave in those bits. I did film that, but for some reason my GoPro cut out and I hadn't clocked it. So that's the only thing that I have done that is different. But overall, really impressed. And as somebody put in the comments of the last video, which I really enjoyed, my workbench is going to be bigger than some people's houses, which yeah, you know, not quite that big, but big enough, and it gives me the confidence now that I can do a lot bigger projects. So I'm really pleased. Hopefully you've enjoyed this second part of the video and you've stuck with it, and you can see why I wanted to split it in two. Just a bit too much for one, and I'm trying to work on the length of my video. So thank you very much for staying with me. If this is your first time at the Garage Workshop, as usual, please can I ask you to subscribe, like and comment. If you're a regular viewer, and I know there are a lot of you that are watching my videos, I have well over 600 views each week when I drop a video, but I'm only getting about 40 likes. If you can just take that 1 second just to click the like button when you've watched the video, it just really helps the YouTube algorithm. And one of the key things about the algorithm is it gets the channel out to more people. So thank you so much, my regular subscribers, and please don't forget to like and comment. I hope, as I say, I hope you've enjoyed this video and you've picked up some stuff that you could use in your own project. I'll catch you on next week's edition of the Garage Workshop. Take care, fellow woodworkers.